Our next session is also an in-conversation session, Investing in Employees, the Key to Competency and Retention. In a rapidly changing environment, reskilling and upskilling majorly impacts companies. Employee expectations have changed dramatically in the last 2 years. How can companies set up focus areas for better analytics and experience to engage and retain necessary talent and lead in the future of work? That's the big question. And our speakers for this session are Krishnamurthy Shankar, Group Head, Human Resources, Infosys. Please give him a big round of applause. I'd like to invite him on stage. Krish is currently the Group Head of Human Resource Development at Infosys. In his role, he's responsible for envisioning employee experience and driving the talent and organization strategy. Joining him in this conversation is Kewyn George, Center Head and Director, Information Services, Expeditors. He is an author of Digital First, a visionary, strategic leader, and management consultant with extensive experience in management consulting, business enablement, IT advisory and strategy, risk management, transition, and program management. Please give them both a big round of applause. I'd like to invite them both on stage.
Hello. Hi, good afternoon. Yeah, let's wait for Kewyn to join in. Great. Welcome, Kewyn. Okay, how are you guys? All okay? Yeah, I can't hear anything. How's it been going? Okay, good. I think we got 15 minutes and then the timer has already started. And what we're going to do is really talk about, I think the topic is investing in employees is important for retention. Yeah, it's like you can't argue with that, right? Everybody will say yes. So what we're going to do is talk a little bit about what does it really mean? How have things changed over some time? So we'll talk a bit about that. Have you heard of this saying by Richard Branson? He said, train your employees well enough so they can leave, but treat them well enough so they will stay. Yeah, I think that was a fabulous quotation. I think it says that you invest in them so that they are employable, they can find something and they can grow. But at the same time, you give them enough opportunities, you treat them so they can stay with you. I think that I think epitomizes what this whole thing is about. So I think if you look at investing in employees is important for retention, I think everybody will say yes. But the question is, what do you invest? Where do you invest? What are the changes? Yeah, that's what we're really going to be talking about in the next kind of our conversation with Kewyn in the next 15 minutes. If you have any questions anytime, just shout across and we'll try and see if we can answer that. Yeah. So Kewyn, I think you've been in the tech industry. I've also been in the tech industry. I hope there are many of us here in the tech industry. And we've seen in the last year, amongst the highest attrition. I mean, every company has seen high attrition, etc. So how do you really, if you were to ask you as, a CEO of a company, in terms of attracting and retaining people, what are some of the things that you've been doing?
Sure, Krish. And by the way, I will also ask some questions to him. So that's there. Attracting and retention, I think because of this great resignation, whatever happened, that has become the talk of the town. I just want to step a little forward and backward, just to go back to the foundation. And recently I was reading a book by Stephen M.R. Covey on Inspire and Trust. In that he talks about 5 emerging forces. The number 1, he says, the nature of the world has changed. And because we all know how the world is changing in terms of the technology advancement. Second, he talks about the nature of the work that also has changed. Absolutely, we all agree, pre-pandemic as well as post-pandemic, the type of the work that we deliver, it also has changed. And most importantly, the nature of the workplace has also changed. That is where we talk about today in the future of the work, hybrid model, work near home. There are a lot of other models are evolving. And the last two, which is again very key, he talks about the nature of the workforce. The mindset of the people has also changed. And the choice of the people also changed. Now, there are so many changes that is happening in this today world. And how, as an organization, you have changed your model? That is a question I want to put across. And relevantly, I want to put another context. Until 19th century, the knowledge economy we call, that doubled every century. So every 100 years, the experts estimated that the knowledge has doubled in 100 years. In 1982, guess what? They estimated that the knowledge has doubled every 13 months. And 2022, the knowledge is doubling in every 12 hours. That is what the speed of knowledge and the growth that is happening. Now the question back to you as organizational people, how are we changing in our company culture, in our compensation structure, in our HR practices? We cannot force fit an external model into your company and try to fit it. Because your environment, your landside is much different from a standard framework. So my humble answer to be is not a direct answer, but you have to go and strengthen your foundation. If you look what the market is driving towards you, what you are losing is your values, principles, and foundation, how this company was built. You are missing that core component because you are running towards attracting people, throwing different value of money to retain as well as to regain the people. Go back and do an assessment in your organization. A guy who has spent 3-4 years in a company that might earning a few lakhs, now the same years of experience person you are hiring from the market in a 3x. Why are you doing that? If you are able to invest the same amount of value in your existing employee who has trusted you and spent 3-4 years, that is where the retention is all about. That is what this will drive positivity in the organization, and your attrition will go down, obviously retention will be higher.
Oh, thanks, Kevin. I think, many of us have been kind of looking at many changes. Have you spoken about the changes and the speed at which change is happening? So tell me, from what you've seen, what are some of the changes in what employees want from a company? What do they see in a value proposition of a company? You used to have things like, compensation, learning, career growth, culture. So how does this rank now? And is it changing amongst the younger people? What are your thoughts on it?
Absolutely changing among the younger force, because everybody wants 3 lakh bike, modernized iPhone and all those things. Absolutely, that is changing. But remember one thing, you talked about compensation, career growth, and culture. I will put culture as a paramount. People go for culture, won't stay for money. Again, people stay for culture, won't go for money. Very important point that we need to articulate, because organization, if you are able to strengthen your culture, then the next layer is your career development, right? Next layer is your learning and development. And I put the last pyramid is your compensation structure. So if you are able to strengthen the first 3, and of course, the 4th will be the byproduct, the people will tend to align and they will stay in the company. But of course, the changing mindset is about people are today moving towards only one value, which could be a rupee value or a dollar value or anything, but it is all that what they want is a higher decimal value. But if the organization can strengthen your culture and tell the true stories, that is where I would see the core crux lies.
Okay, so you seem to be really the school of thought of culture and values and principles. So tell me, if you were to summarize your personal philosophy of engaging people and retaining people, how would you say that?
I would categorize leadership into 2 contexts. One is about missionist thinking, and the other is the gardener. So if you put yourself, you are a missionist, you will be focusing on efficiency, you will focus on results, you will focus on task completion, you will focus on productivity, you will focus on results and outcomes. But whereas if you see a gardener, I'm sure you all know, the gardener will focus on strengthening the environment. He will prepare the ground for the plants to grow. He will put the right manure on the ground and keep the ground ready, and will make which lot of rich ingredients so that the plants can absorb and grow and blossom. That's a true difference, right? So I follow the later, and would say that it gives me a lot of happiness inside. In our organization, our employees are happy, and automatically the growth is what we see as a byproduct. And the question again I want to ask you, are you a missionist or a gardener? That is a point of contention that you need to decide once you leave out of this room.
Thank you, Gardener Kewyn. So that was nice. I think that's a fabulous thing in terms of the mindset that one should have in terms of dealing with your employees. So thanks for that.
Absolutely. So that was from his side of to me. Then I'm not, unlike he remembers all the questions, but I had a paper to remember because these are some of the tough questions I'm going to ask him. Infosys, IT services, a lot of things to share, right? So Krish, the first is, we're talking about the context here is about investing in employees, right? So what are the areas you see as an investment in employees, primarily to build the required competency and increase their tenure in the organization?
No, I think just to go back, if you were to look at what really makes employees give their best in any organization, yeah? And I see there are 5 key things. You can put it like a pyramid, but there are 5 core things. First, I think they need to be happy with their manager and their teams, the team that they're working with. Yeah, I think that's very important. I think if they like the manager, if they kind of look at the team and they feel good with working with the team, I think they will stay. So that's the first step. So invest in your managers. I think I think if you can get your managers to inspire people, I think you've done the first thing. You've done the gardener's work, as Kewyn puts it. I think the second part is about learning. Yeah? And I think that's where people want, because you can work in a job, but if you're not learning on the job, if you're not challenged enough in the job, you will lose interest. So how do you learn and grow in your career? I think that's the second most important thing. So I think what we've got to say is, I've now had a great manager in the team, but let's focus on learning. How do I really get people to learn more, give them the right pathways to learn? I mean, learning has to be, in a way, a kind of an axis of both what the organization wants and what the individual wants. Yeah, you got to really have a mix of the two. But ensure they are learning and they are growing in a career in the organization, and give them a path. They know that this is how I will grow. That's the second step. The third one is recognition. I think that's becoming more and more important. Of course, if you just look at LinkedIn anywhere, you'll see hundreds of people putting recognition. I've got this, I've got that, I've got this. So there's a lot of social kind of need for people to see what's happening. Yeah. So I think recognition is critical, and I think that really is another way to really invest and retain people. Then comes, I think, the 2 areas which I think are a little more evolving, and then some companies, and still some are still trying. One is really what we call as psychological safety, where people feel that they are really they can be at home in a team. They can be themselves in a team. I think that needs the manager as well as the organization to work together to create that environment. And lastly, this whole thing about purpose, where people feel that, listen, I am achieving my purpose. And whatever I want to do, I'm trying to achieve that, and I'm able to achieve that. I think if the organization helps align their thinking, their purpose, then I think that's the thing. So I would say these 5 steps. As an organization, we've got to invest in each of those. And I think create the gardener kind of an environment to really help retain people.
Yeah, very well said and very well summarized, Krish. Now, in this current context, post-pandemic, we are seeing kind of this turnover rates are completely increasing. Companies are going different dimensions to retain companies, right? Where do you see this trend is getting ahead? What are your recommendations or some suggestions for the organization to consider how to tackle this trend?
No, if you look at the current attrition, there are 2 factors. If you just look at it and say, is it driven by market forces or driven by internal forces? If you look at it, I think you'll find most places, you'll say it's driven by external forces, because there's huge demand in the market. We've never seen this kind of a demand, and demand all across, right from startups, right from e-commerce company like Flipkart, right from GCCs, IT services company, big organizations digitizing, everyone is going to tech talent. And therefore, the huge demand has created this first thing. Second is there's also a change in what people want. I think they want more flexibility now. They're looking at the need to learn and do things differently. What are the ones they are focusing on as a value proposition, in their minds is also changing. I think a mix of these two has really created this thing. I think organizations have to step up across all the elements. I think the first step is, as you said, short-term compensation is not the answer. It's a long-term building the whole environment is the answer. I think that's where those 5 principles I spoke about, I think we got to work on those. But invest as people see that they can grow, learn in their careers, and see a greater future for them, then I think they will stay. So I think we got to separate the short term from the long term as we go forward in this.
Sure. And today conference is all about talking the future of the work. What are your recommendations or suggestions for the organization to adapt in the moving trend of the future of work specifically?
Well, I think this is an area everybody's learning, right? I mean, I don't think anybody can sit here and say, I know the future of work. This is how it is. If somebody says that, then I think it's going to be wrong. As soon as the pandemic came, the first 6 months, people said, everybody will now be 100% remote. The world is remote. And then 2 years down the road, Silicon Valley is pushing people to come to work. Yeah, Elon Musk is saying, you come back to work, otherwise no. So they've changed. JP Morgan is saying, you come. So I think guys are all going all over the place, so nobody knows. But there are some changes that are happening. Number one, I think greater need for flexibility is very clear. Greater focus on well-being is very clear. These are becoming now the hygiene factors in any organization. A greater focus on learning and kind of giving more empowerment to people to learn and grow is becoming clear. So these 3 are clearly important elements that have now come in. I think companies will evolve over time from a remote model to a hybrid model. I think, but these 3 will be very important. We'll have more flexibility in every employee's thing in terms of how and where they want to work. We'll have greater focus on well-being in a much more holistic way, especially mental health, and a greater focus on giving the greater ownership to employees on how they learn and how fast they learn, and provide them the means to do that. I think these 3 will be the future as we look forward.
Absolutely, and very well summarized, Krish. Pretty much the timer started ticking saying that you're done, but we have some questions to you. So can we have those questions, please? So it's a time of engagement. There are 2 questions that we want to ask you and take your feedback, and possibly we could ask NASCOM to share those outcome to you as well. Maybe I'll just... So, yes, go to menti.com, and if you could use the code 79265530. Otherwise, you can to the scanner as well, but either way. Can we have the questions? Yeah, so it's a word cloud. Please share your perspective. What can companies do to attract talent for the future? See, this is what just I was talking about, right? 15 minutes. Don't focus. Don't focus on money, It's someone here really wants some money. Hema is saying everybody wants money. I like the word, building a trusted culture, flexibility, purpose, career path, recognition, again culture, work environment, flexibility, upskill, building more engaging workspaces, flexibility. Is something like one person is doing flexibility. Purpose, flexible policies on remote, culture, opportunities to learn. Something again, the pay more is coming. Okay,
we can go to the next one.
Next one, please. But predominantly that came was culture and flexibility to work. And do you feel, it's an yes or no question, and do you feel that organization possesses the talent, creativity, and competence to perform for today's and tomorrow's future, today's and future needs? I know, I do not want this maybe. He put this maybe because I wanted specifically yes or no. Why did you do that? But still,
They are discovering it now, so the maybes are still discovering.
right.
Okay.
But what do you think, Krish? Predominantly, a sizable percentage is saying yes, but there are, I would say, if you combine the no and the maybe, it's like 50-50.
Yeah. No, I think you're right. At least about 2/3 are saying yes. I think they know and they feel that their company and their organizations have the talent and everything. There are a few who are still not sure. I think this is, but everywhere you'll find this. Yeah, and I think that's good. I hope this conference gives you some insights. Yeah, in terms of what we can do. There's no easy answers to it. Yeah, I think every textbook will give you an answer, but you got to find that for yourself. You got to try it in your own organization, in your own teams, and see what really works. So thank you and wish you all the best.
Thank you very much.
I'd like to thank both Kewyn and Krish for that very engaging and candid conversation.